Welcome to another episode of The Other Side. I'm Leslie.
I'm Will.
And today we're going to talk about Silent Hill in this first part of a special two-part episode because we can't cover Silent Hill in one episode. There's just too much. The game's been around for too long. We absolutely love them.
A dying franchise.
Yeah, it's slowly, but we'll get to that. Let's talk about the good years. Created in 1999 by Team Silent, which was kind of Konami's group of unprovens. They just kind of shuffled them off to the side. They were tasked with creating a cinematic horror game because Konami wanted what Capcom had going with the phenomenal Resident Evil. They wanted their own take on that. Well, Team Silent, the cinematic, they had a bunch of ideas for it, but the cinematic approach didn't quite work for them. So they went in another direction. They said, we're going to focus on psychological horror rather than jump scares, rather than, you know, what Resident Evil. We want something different. We want our own thing. And then thanks to the processing limitations of the original PlayStation, we got the iconic fog because it was there just to cover up what you couldn't see, so where you were going had a chance to load, and it just became an outstanding staple of the series. Gave you a wonderful claustrophobic feel. You never could quite see what was going on. And then, you know, in Silent Hill, your protagonist is a man named Harry Mason, a man looking for his daughter who's lost in the town. He ends up getting mixed up in this cult, and there's prophecy and demons, and can't say it has the strongest story, one that actually makes sense, but it's just so out there. It's very Lovecraftian. It's almost like you don't need to know all the little details. It's just creepy as hell. And Harry was unlike any video game protagonist I'd ever played as because this guy was clumsy. He could hardly fight. His aim was horrible. You couldn't shoot anything that was more than 10 feet away from you. He was a very realistic person. And then, of course, you didn't play the original Silent Hill.
I was busy in the world of Resident Evil. And you have to remember at the time, Resident Evil 2 was really the hottest.
Oh, God, yeah. Really great game
franchise.
As well.
And so I had heard all the hype on the first Silent Hill, so I got the second one. And I remember sitting in the room with the lights out playing it, and the game was just cranked. And every time that static radio just went off.
Yes. Silent Hill 2, released in 2001. And even though some games have taken a shot at it, with Evil Within and Dead Space, still, for my money, in my opinion, the darkest damn story in gaming. It's Silent Hill 2. Hands down, I personally don't think you can get any darker than where they were willing to go with Silent Hill 2, where you play as James Sunderland, a man who receives a letter from his wife telling him to come to Silent Hill. His wife's been dead for 3 years, at least as far as he tells us. Then he goes through Silent Hill looking for his wife. He encounters other people, which was a different take than the first game, because in the first game, Harry runs into the cultist and the cop and a doctor, but the people James runs into, they all have something in common. They're killers. Every person he talks to, with the exception of the little girl, is a murderer. But they were drawn to Silent Hill. And I think that was great foreshadowing, because you come to find out James murdered his wife, and there is I think, a believable theory that James's wife is in the trunk. He just killed her. That she's in the trunk of the car, and that's why at the end, there are two endings that, you know, give this theory steam. In the water ending, James drives into the water and drowns, talking to his wife the entire time, giving you the indication that she's there. But for me, what was more is in the rebirth ending, which was the special ending you could get if you collected 4 items, and you see James on a boat with his wife's body.
Yeah.
I think she was in the trunk of the car, which just makes it creepy, and then Silent Hill 2 gave us the iconic Pyramid Head.
My favorite.
Punishing James Sunderland for his guilt.
And that was the other thing about Silent Hill through all these games. The creatures that they created, I mean, they were so different at that time. You know, we were used to zombies and things like that, but these guys, you were just like, what the hell is that thing? And, you know, he spits all his, the
lying figure spitting the stuff out of his chest.
Of course, the sexy nurses, which I didn't know if I wanted to ask him on a date or let him stab me.
Yep, the psychotic nurses. And then Pyramid Head, who is just iconic. just this Punisher that the design. There's a whole interesting story behind the design.
The first time you see him, he's raping a mannequin.
Yeah, he's a monster that kills other monsters.
These games are.
He's messed up. So then we move on to Silent Hill 3. Released in 2003, also on the PS2, Silent Hill 3 gives us the conclusion to the story from Silent Hill 1, which I thought that was really interesting to have a direct sequel to your first game as the third in the series. You now play as Cheryl, who's all grown up, going by the name Heather Mason, and she's being followed by a private investigator, and then everything goes to hell in the mall she's in. I liked that because it gave us a different setting to play in, and also it was cool playing as, you know, grown-up Cheryl. She goes home, and that was the part I didn't like about the game, is your protagonist from the first game is dead. Harry dies, and Cheryl goes on a mission to vengeance to Silent Hill, and slays God, or Silent Hill's God.
Yeah. You know, something else besides, you know, the puzzles in this game, which is another element that's great. You know, they make you go and do creepy shit that you don't want to do, you know, to get your puzzle. And the characters, but I have to talk about the music because I have the soundtrack to Silent Hill 2 and 3.
Oh, yeah,
the music by Akira Yamaoka. I don't know, probably slaughtered it. Anyways, his music was phenomenal. He did the second soundtrack, I think, in a day. And the music, it's so different. And, of course, this theme being one of my favorites. Pyramid Head's theme. Anyways.
Oh, yes.
Everything in these games, to me, was just perfect.
Yes, it's designed to creep you out.
Original creatures, the fog, the music.
Yes, the first 3 Silent Hill games are bar none classics in my mind in the horror genre. It's just, they were the first games I ever played that scared me. Resident Evil didn't scare me. Okay, right. the dog jumping through the window, the jump scare, okay, that got me to jump. But Silent Hill creeped me out.
I don't want to go. I don't
throughout playing. Yeah.
I don't want to open this door.
I don't want to open that door. I hear something, but I don't know where it is. I don't want to go down that hallway.
Number 4, I didn't play.
Then we start getting off the rails a little bit in Silent Hill 4: The Room. Now, in Silent Hill 4's defense, it's not a Silent Hill game. It did not start as a Silent Hill game. It started as something else entirely. But they wanted to make it Silent Hill as it went on. That's why your villain in Silent Hill 4, Walter Sullivan, he's really the only tie to the Silent Hill franchise in this game, and he only comes from a brief sentence in Silent Hill 2 that you overhear over the radio, and you find some articles about this serial killer, Walter Sullivan. I'm not sure why they decided to do this, because even when you play the game, it doesn't feel like Silent Hill. Granted, it's an interesting game with your character being trapped in his in his apartment. He can't open the door, which is odd because his door is locked from the inside, but he can't leave. And his room is being haunted. You got these ghosts that pop up, and you got this hole that appears in the wall in his bathroom that he can crawl through, and he ends up going to other worlds, and that's how he's slowly piecing together this very convoluted story on how to escape the room, how to defeat Walter Sullivan. The combat, they tried to jazz it up a little bit. I don't really like it. It's too bright, and that was one of my biggest problems with the game is the graphics are okay, but it's too bright. I can see everything so clearly. It just didn't have that. I wasn't really afraid, with the exception of the hauntings in the apartment. Some of those are done really, really well, especially the freaky-ass rabbit that's staring at you through the peephole. And some of that's done really well, but it didn't have a Silent Hill feel. Then we move on to Silent Hill Origins, or Silent Hill 0, which was released in 2007 on the PSP and then later ported to the PS2. And this one was Silent Hill getting back to form. They put it back in Silent Hill, they made it dark, they brought back the fog. But what's interesting is you play as Travis Grady, who's kind of the reason that the Silent Hill franchise as we know it started. He's the one who took Cheryl out of Silent Hill. He's the one who met Alessa before she was burned, and then afterwards, he's the one who took the baby out of Silent Hill, and that's how she ended up with Harry. So an interesting little story that they released on handheld, so I thought that was cool. Then we move on to a game that is much maligned.
Homecoming.
Yes, Homecoming.
This is when I came back and started playing it.
Released, on the PS3 and Xbox 360 in 2009. What were your impressions of Homecoming? Because this game has gotten trashed over the years.
See, and I never understood. I know the fighting mechanics people didn't like, but I thought it was simpler, to live a little longer. My biggest beef with the game was Pyramid Head's in it, but you don't get to fight him. But it looks like Silent Hill 2. It looks better than Silent Hill 2 and 3. The graphics are, phenomenal. The voice acting, the creatures. There's such a variety of, different bosses to fight. And, I mean, towards the end of the game, they're just, as you're running through the fog, it's just littered. There's a monster around every corner, so I enjoyed the hell out of the game. I enjoy that you get several different endings. If you bust your ass and you get my favorite ending is the UFO, because then you can go through the game with a laser rifle.
The omnipotent laser gun.
It never runs out of ammo, and it makes getting the rest of endings pretty easy.
And
I don't know. I liked the story. I liked the atmosphere. It had a lot of creepy shit. To me, it was, I don't know, a great follow-up to 3.
Yeah, see, and I feel the same way. I really don't understand why this game has gotten... I even replayed it recently just to see, if maybe, it was just my fanboy saying it was a good game, but it is a good game. People said it wasn't scary. How do you not find a story about a bunch of people who killed their own kids and then one guy who didn't, and now your town is getting sucked into hell? How's that not scary? How do you go through that hotel without feeling a bit nervous when you got the nurses and the creepy things with the blades on their arm? Yeah, my really only complaint, even the combat I like, because it was good to, for once, have a capable fighter in a Silent Hill game. It was different. My biggest complaint was that Pyramid Head was even in the game, honestly, because I didn't see what real purpose he served. I thought it kind of cheapened. It was cool to see him. Yeah, it was cool seeing him, don't get me wrong, but it cheapened his Silent Hill 2. Because Silent Hill 2, he had a very direct purpose. He had a very direct... There was a reason he existed, whereas having him in Homecoming, I understand it's fan service, he's iconic monster. I just didn't really get why he was there.
No, I guess I just looked at that he was still in that area.
Yeah, I mean, you could say
maybe he wasn't as concerned with your character.
Now, you could say they added to his lore, making him Silent Hill's Punisher. However, another theory that I heard, and there's actually a whole YouTube video about this, is that Pyramid Head in Homecoming is James Sunderland.
Yeah.
That he never left Silent Hill. And I think that's kind of an interesting thought. Okay, then moving on, still sticking with the games. Silent Hill Shattered Memories, released on the Wii in the 2009. It also was ported to PS2. No. Yeah, I didn't have a Wii either. Shattered Memories, I had mixed feelings about it. It's a retelling of the original Silent Hill, which I thought was cool. I had played the GameCube remake of Resident Evil HD, so when I heard this was a remake of the original Silent Hill, I thought, awesome! I'm totally ready for that. I guess I didn't understand it was a reimagining. In where they're telling the story of that Cheryl is actually a young adult in therapy, and her father, Harry, died in a car accident years ago. There's no monsters, there's no prophecy. I mean, there's monsters, but they're more hallucinations than anything else. And the whole thing, it's an interesting concept. And also the concept of running from the enemies. You don't have a weapon in this game. You have a cell phone, you have a flashlight. But after you run the first couple times, it gets old because the running is completely predictable. It's staged events, where you just gotta run, get away, and then you go back to exploring. Had it happened more randomly, it probably would have been more effective. I still like how the game is presented. The story was interesting and the ending was a surprise when I first played the game, because it doesn't tell you that from the get-go. You don't find out you're playing as an imaginary father the entire game until the very end. But wasn't really all that scary. It was a nice attempt. Then we had Silent Hill Downpour.
I didn't play this crap because I saw it
on PS3.
I saw you playing
Xbox
it.
I'm like, 360. I don't want
this game. They were trying to do something different, but in the process, they lost, to me, any element of Silent Hill.
Well, yeah,
If you want to talk about a game that just wasn't fucking scary.
Yeah.
It was this game.
It was released in 2012. Now, arguably, I will say Downpour has the most coherent Silent Hill story. You can follow it. I liked the protagonist. I thought he was a pretty relatable character. I even liked the cop that was in it. Thought she was alright. And I liked the idea of you're in Silent Hill and their attempt at free roaming. that you could go anywhere.
Right.
The problem with that was you constantly got lost. You never knew where to go. You know, and that was annoying. The combat was so simplistic and so repetitive. The monsters, not very original. I can't think of one monster that really resonated with me. Even the Pyramid Head ripoff in the Boogeyman. That was like the best part of the game, when you got to play as that guy at the end of the game. And that's why I was so excited when Konami released in 2014 PT, the playable teaser. You didn't even know what it was. It was released on PlayStation Network. You're in a haunted house and you keep going around in a circle, and you got to solve these mysteries. There's a ghost chasing you, and if it catches you, it kills you. You can't fight. But you have to get the clues, solve the mystery, and escape the house. And when you escape the house, the camera pans out, and you just see the feet walking, and then you see the back of a guy, and then you see the sign, and you're like, holy shit, it's Silent Hill. Then the guy turns, and it's Daryl from Walking Dead. I mean, it's Norman Reedus. And then you see Guillermo del Toro's name and Hideo Kojima from the Metal Gear Solid series. And it's like, what the hell is going on? Awesome. And it says Silent Hills with an S on the end. It was like, okay, so are we dealing with parallel dimensions? What's going on here? And then in March 2015, they fucking canceled it.
Boo.
Yeah, boo Konami. Why? Why? And then they had the balls to say, we're going forward with our Silent Hill franchise. The best video game director, in my opinion, of all time. He made cinematic gaming. You got Guillermo del Toro, Norman Reedus, and hopefully maybe we see them down the line in something, but I was very disappointed to hear about this cancellation.
Okay. All right, well, that was our Silent Hill game portion of our two-part series. When we come back, we will talk about the movies.
Yes,
and
the Silent Hill movies.
Comic books that tied into Silent Hill.
The whole Silent Hill comic book franchise. Pyramid Head his own comic.
All right, this is Will.
I'm Leslie.
We're out.